Good morning, friends. I know there are times in our lives when sometimes we feel like God has forgotten about us. We've been forsaken. And maybe it's because we've done things that we know that's what we deserve. But you know, God never forgets about us. He never would leave us or forsake us. Matthew 10:30, even the hairs on your head are numbered. You know, we're never out of God's thoughts. We're always on His mind. He's always desiring to do things in our lives and in our hearts that would bring joy and a peace that passes understanding. So this is a sweet potato slip. You know, it's just a leaf off of a sweet potato plant. It takes about 90 to 120 days, depending on the variety, to get a sweet potato. So my wife, 4 months ago, put the little slips in a glass of water. It made roots. She put it in the ground. And now we've been waiting for 3 or 4 months, depending again on the variety of the sweet potato. But the harvest time has come. Darlene started yesterday to dig the potatoes. I'll show you some interesting pictures in just a moment, but she started to dig the sweet potatoes. Now, here's some of the pictures I took yesterday. Here's a video of Darlene when she dug that first potato. Isn't it wonderful how God has worked? You know, He works, we can't see what He's doing. But God, the master gardener, is down there producing a harvest for us. He's producing quite a crop. Hold it over here. That's the big one. So what was that, 4-pounder?
I don't know,
huh?
Not that much.
That much? Wait a minute. And even though we could not see the development of the potato underneath the ground, we hoped by faith that the Lord was doing something, that we could harvest a crop of sweet potatoes. You can't see it, right? It's invisible work. Now we see through 1 Corinthians 13:12. Now we see through glass darkly. It's like you can't penetrate the ground. You don't know what's happening underneath. But Hebrews 11:6, without faith it's impossible to please God. That's an exercise in faith waiting on the crop. Now if the Lord cares about a sweet potato, look, how much more us? You know, sparrow is sold for a farthing. You know, it's Matthew 10:29 and 31. A sparrow is sold for a couple of farthings. But look, sparrow falls, God knows all about it. We're worth a lot more than many sparrows. So if the Lord feeds the birds and He clothes the animals in the creation and He brings in the harvest, how much more us? So when you have periods of time where it feels like, you know, it's just like God has disconnected from you, remember, the sweet potato in the ground, it's an assurance that the Lord is working, even though unnoticed and unseen by us. When John the Baptist was in the dungeon, you know, after a time, he felt probably like, you know, things just weren't happening like he thought they should. He may have felt a little bit of a discouragement, and he sent 2 of his followers to ask Jesus, are you the Messiah that we looked for, or should we be expecting to find somebody else? So in times of discouragement, when things don't go as we plan, the tendency for the human mind is to think, maybe God's forgotten about me. That's because our human minds, we are able to forget about others. But God can't do that. He can't forget about me even 1 second of one day. I am continuously in His thoughts. In Hebrews 7:25, He ever liveth to make intercession for, I'll personalize it, He ever liveth to make intercession for me. My wife and I have this saying. We say, you know, God is working in the kitchen. God's cooking in the kitchen. God's quite a cook too. When He cooks up a meal, your soul's going to be fed. So that saying, when we say it, it's an encouragement. We encourage each other with a reminder that God is at work in our lives. Well, I can't see Him doing anything. Well, friends, you don't need to see it. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 18. We look not at the things which are seen, because the things that are seen, the things we see, it's temporal. Now, we look at the things that are eternal. And the things that are eternal, they are not seen, they're invisible. Looking upon the invisible. For the invisible things are eternal. So how do you see that which is not visible? Well, the eye of faith. Joseph, when he was going down to Egypt to be sold as a slave into Potiphar's house, he knew somehow this was going to work out for good. He didn't know how, but he knew it was going to work for good. Then he's framed up by Potiphar's wife, goes to jail for 2 years. Somehow he knew this was going to work for good. Daniel's going into the lion's den, Daniel 6. Somehow he knew this was going to work for good. Paul, walking into Rome as a prisoner, somehow Paul knew this was going to work out for good. Because in Romans 8:28, all things work together for good to them that love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. His purpose is to save us. And sometimes as He works out His purposes, it's invisible to the naked physical eye. We've got to be able to say, God's cooking in the kitchen. And when you think about the sweet potato plant, you can't see the development of the potatoes. But by faith, we believe the harvest is going to come, come the fall.
I can't tell if I'm trying on a potato or a root.
We can't eat a root, we can eat a potato.
Yeah. Well, I guess they are a root. They're a different kind of root. They're an edible root. Clay, good morning, Clay.
The same is true in our lives. So as we face discouragement, let's exercise some patience. First of all, that will give us spiritual strength. Spiritual strength. But it's more than that. Isaiah 40:31. They that wait upon the Lord, shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Teach me, Lord, to wait. Help me to wait upon you, to know you are cooking in the kitchen, that you have not forsaken me, you have not forgotten about me. You're working 24/7, full time. I'd say overtime, but God can't work overtime. He's working all the time. You're doing something to order my life. 1 Corinthians 14:40, let all things be done decently and in order. God is not the author of confusion. He has a purpose, a plan, and a place for me. And He is working out that plan. Well, what if you can't see it? Well, dear friends, we got to walk by faith today. Let's not walk alone, let's walk with Christ. Amos 3:3, can two walk together unless they be agreed? We can agree that God is good, He does not forget, and certainly, we never slip out of His thoughts or out of His mind. So the Lord bless you today. May God give you a blessing. May He help you to understand His goodness and His grace. May He show forth His fatherly care for you, that we can sound it to those around us, that God is good and an unforgetful Father. Have a nice day.